to tie up a Gartside Gurgler for you today. This is a very popular fly that Jack Gartside came up with. I would have to say the Gurgler is kind of like the Clouser minnow. It's very popular, it's well known, and there's tons of different variations on this fly. I generally fish this for the warm water species around in the Midwest here, but I have also thrown this to pike, I've thrown this to redfish, I've thrown this to multiple different species. It was originally tied, I think, as a trout fly. It's just a great surface fly. It's more of a slider, it's not a popper, but it's very, very easy to tie. I would highly recommend that you also, if you're interested in tying this, go look at some other videos. There's tons of them out there, different variations that people tie, long hooks, short hooks, squat bodies, long bodies, and so on. But this is tied more or less the way Jack Gartside tied it. And believe it or not, even though he has passed away a long time ago, his website is still out there and in production, and in the original instructions for the Gartside Gurgler are on that. I will leave a link down in the description for that. So that's the Gartside Gurgler, and I'll get started. Start the Gurgler by placing my hook in the vise. This is a Mustad 34011 in the size 4. It is a 5X long saltwater hook. You don't have to use a saltwater hook. You could even use like a 3366 with this, or even like a Tiemco 8089. This is, if you look at the instructions that Jack Gartside has on his website, then this is one of the hooks that he mentions, and so I just decided to go with this particular hook. I'm going to debarb that hook and attach my thread. For thread, I'm using a 140 Denier in Chartreuse. This is going to be a Chartreuse bug. You could do this in white, you can do this, as I said before, there's just tons of variations of this particular fly. I'm going to start a little bit behind the eye of the hook, and I'm going to put down a base layer of thread, and you'll see in a little bit that's going to help hold the underlying body all together. Stop right at the point of the hook. This is where I'm going to start tying in the tail. The Gartside Gurgler is just a very, very simple topwater pattern. The tail is some bucktail and some flash, and that's it. And you're kind of sparse on the bucktail. You can tie these with marabou instead of bucktail if you want. Many people do. There are other patterns out there with the craft fur in the tail, so don't feel that you're limited to just using the bucktail. So I've got a sparse clump here. Doesn't have to be a lot. I've gotten the short fibers out and getting the real long ones out and kind of matching those up a little bit. I don't mind a little bit of a taper on this. All I'm doing is holding the real long ones and pulling those out and then putting it back together to kind of even those up a little bit. You could stack it if you wanted to. I don't mind the taper. Just take your time with it. There you go. I'm going to measure this. I like about anywhere from 1.5 to 2 times the hook length. So the hook length is from the front of the eye of the hook and the back of the bend. I'm going to secure that in right at the point of the hook, working backwards just a little bit. I don't want to pull this too hard and flare it. Now I'm going to wrap up the hook shank, collecting that bucktail down along the hook shank. I don't mind that if it goes around the hook shank a little bit. I'm going to trim away the excess. Now I'm going to wrap down on that body again. I have one brown hair in there. Not a big deal, really, in the long run if you're going to tie these and fish them. Probably being too fastidious there. Now I'm going to crank down on my thread as I wrap and collect the rest of that bucktail along the hook shank. This is going to make a nice underbody for our foam to get glued down to. That's why I laid that base layer of thread down. Now here I'm just doing a few little collecting wraps as I go back a little bit. I don't want to. If I pull too much on that, it's going to flare out, and I don't. It could still fish fine, but I don't want it to. The flash I'm using is just some Chartreuse crystal flash or flash accent. You could, again, use almost any flash that you prefer. I'm going to bring my thread forward, maybe just past the point of the hook. I'm going to tie this in so it's more or less on top. You could do the sides if you want. It's up to you. Now I'm going to wrap down a few wraps and bring this front piece over to the other side, kind of towards the top, collecting that together. Then I'll trim that the length of the tail. And that's our tail. The rest of the fly is really, really easy. It's some 2mm foam as well as a hackle. I'm just using a 2mm Chartreuse foam for this. Like I said, it's all an all Chartreuse bug. But if you look at other videos that people have done, a lot of people will trim this part of the foam, tie it in back here, and then fold it over. And then they'll put crystal flash or pearl chenille or Estaz or even dubbing or something on as a body. Jack Gartside in his used the actual foam as an underbody like this. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to place this so this is about an eye length behind the eye of the hook, because when we fold it over, I need to have a tie-in spot right there. Now all I'm doing here is just pulling that down a little bit, kind of double checking, getting my tie-in spot ready. And then I'm going to unwrap it again. And that just gives me a mark on the foam where to go. Because what I'm going to do is put just a drop of, this is some Loctite super glue. I'm going to put just a drop of super glue right here. And in a minute, I'm going to also put some along the body here that this foam will end up getting glued down to. So I place my foam back on top, put a few wraps in. Careful when you first pull down on that, because you can very easily cut through that foam. Now, before I proceed, I've got to tie in my hackle. The hackle on this, the original Gartside, at least per his instructions, was all white. It was just a white, maybe Schlappen or something like that. Because this is Chartreuse, what I'm using, this is a Chartreuse Woolly Bugger Pack by Whiting. And it's just kind of a badger hackle. I like it because it's really long. It's going to give me a nice full body. And I'm going to tie that in by the tip. I'm not going to use the very tip because I do want some of these barbs sticking down in the back. tie that right here on top. Getting a few more wraps in there. I'm going to put just a little drop of head cement right on that. Just going to help hold it in a little bit. It's a pretty sturdy fly. Now I'll fold this back, and I'm going to put just a real light layer of super glue right along the top here. You got another type of super glue, CA, Zap-A-Gap, whatever you want to call it, then go ahead and use that. This is a thick gel. It gives me a longer work time. Now, before I fully put that down in there, I'm going to bring my thread forward a little bit, and I'm going to try and get about 5 evenly spaced wraps in here that are going to kind of segment this foam just a little bit. I usually only get about 4 nice segmentations to it, but that's fine. And just get the very end of that tied in. Put a few extra wraps on it. Tie that down. And now you have just a nice kind of even spaced underbody on this. Take our hackle. I'm going to get one wrap here in the back, and then I'm going to, from underneath, bring it forward to the next spot, bring it forward to the next spot. And so on, working my way on up to the very front section. Now this section here, I'm going to put in 2 or 3 extra wraps, kind of like you would if you were tying a woolly bugger. That's just going to give me a little bit larger profile up in front. Secure that in. Trim that away. And then I'm going to wrap down a little bit to secure that. I'm also going to put a little bit of head cement on there. Let that soak down in there. Now it's a simple matter of folding the foam over. You can stroke these hackle fibers down a little bit if you want to get them in more of a downward direction. I find that they tend to go down anyway. Folding that foam over, I'm going to stroke these hackles back so I can get this wrapped in right behind the eye of the hook, a little bit further forward. Take your time with it. There's a lot going on here. Get any of those hackles trapped up front, you can trim those off. Or just loosen it and retie it. I like to pinch the foam here as I'm doing this to kind of assist it. Again, if you're not careful, you can very easily cut through this foam. Once that is on tight and secure, I'm going to trim the front. I usually like the lip in the front here to be maybe about half a hook shank length. Something like that. I'm going to take this waist piece here, and I'm going to cut this in half, maybe a little bit more. I'll show you why. Then I can pull this back, bring my thread in front, put a few whip finishes in here. So when you're fishing this, generally I like to have this up just a little bit. It can kind of fall flat like that. I think it'll still fish well because of the weight of the hook in the back here. This doesn't ride totally flat in the water. It tends to ride a little bit at a down angle. But to assist this a little bit, there's a video on the Gurgler that Tim Flagler did. I think that's how I pronounce his last name, on Tightline Productions, and he does this. I thought this was an interesting technique. And now that I think about it, I need to reattach my thread here. I shouldn't have cut that off. Because I'm going to need to tie this in. What he does is he ties in a little bit of foam here, and I kind of like this in that you're going to then put some super glue on both pieces here to kind of hold that up and prop it up. I do it a little bit different in that the first thing I'm going to do is put a little bit of super glue right on the end here, not quite that much. I'm going to just glue that right to the headpiece here, not gluing the back end yet. Put that on there and give that just a few seconds. While that's drying, I'm going to point out to you, notice how on the back here, where I wrap that foam in for the body, I made certain to cover up any thread wraps on that tail, so it looks like the tail just comes right out of that foam. So now, with the front half of this glued in, what I can do is pull this back a little bit, like this, and then wrap my thread down on that and see how it really helps to kind of prop that up. Then I'll put just a little bit of glue right back here. I think I got a little too much right out there. But by doing it that way, I think it just helps pull this back and prop it up even more. Adds a little tension kind of pulling backwards. So if you just forget that I did a whip finish earlier and cut my thread off, you can do a whip finish right here if you want, or you can, like I did earlier, just do it right up behind the eye. So actually it worked out because now you get to see both. So I'll put a little head cement on those thread wraps. Don't be shy with it. I'm fishing these for warm water species, so it's going to get chewed up. Did a video not too long ago on the Kent Stealth Bomber, if you've seen that one, which is similar to the Gurgler. It was an interesting fly. Now, the last thing I'm going to do, everybody has their preference here. I'm just going to trim these corners just a little bit. You don't have to do this. Some people like this in more of a pointed arrow shape or diamond or round. That's all up to you. That is the Gartside Gurgler. Very, very popular fly, especially for if you like fishing topwater. For trout and things like that, you can swing these in. I mean, it also makes a great little mouse pattern if you ever go mousing at night for trout. But even during the day, it has a nice wake to it. It's more like a slider. It doesn't pop in the water, but it does make a nice wake and disturbance for smallmouth and largemouth bass and even some crappie and larger panfish. A little bit smaller size, but the Gurgler is an excellent fly. So look up some other Gurglers that people have done, whether that's written or whether it's a video. Find one you like and tie up some Gartside Gurglers. Thanks for watching today. Thanks for joining me at the Vise today. I hope you learned at least a new pattern, if not a new technique, maybe a tip or trick here and there. If you have any questions about this fly or any of the techniques used in constructing this pattern, please leave them in the comments section down below. If you go to the trouble to ask a question, I'll go to the trouble to answer it. If you'd like to help dressed irons, please share this video with your friends and anybody you think that might enjoy this pattern. Until next time, remember, it's fly tying. If you're not having fun, then you're doing it wrong.